Good morning. We on? We're on. Good morning. Stuart Smith. Hey, Carolyn. How's everyone? Wow. Yeah, how about some hooping and hollering from back there? I like that. That's what today's about. That's what Colorado's about. Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Greenwood, and I'm going to ask my good friend and colleague of a lot of years, Stuart Smith, would you join us on stage? See, there he is. You're supposed to be up here already. How about a big round of applause for Stuart? What's up, buddy? So how was your morning, Stuart?
It was great. I talked to you at where we were texting at 5:20.
Yeah.
What were you wearing?
Well, so I'm lying in bed. I'm like, I got to get up a minute. I turned over, looked at my phone, and there's a text. Hey. That's all it said. Hey. From
It
Stuart.
said, yo.
Oh, yo. So I sent him back, good morning. And you said,
What are you wearing today? I said, what are you wearing?
I said, what are you wearing? I said, nothing. I'm still in bed.
Actually, you said, I'm not wearing anything. I'm naked.
That's way more than you wanted to know this morning. It is not why you came.
By the way, did anyone realize that we are twins?
Well, thank you all for coming this morning. This is what our community's about. Having a good time, connecting, knowing each other, and keeping it light. I have a little bit of a survey I want to do this morning. How many people have lived in Colorado only since 2008? Raise your hand. What? That's a pretty shallow, look at that. Let's go back another economic downturn. How many people have lived here since the late 90s? Since, yes. How many people have lived here longer than that? Call it before the 90s. Wow, how about that? How many natives? Yeah, how about a round of applause for the natives? How many third-generation natives?
Wow.
How many fourth-generation natives? Tanner Mason. I can't see who that is in the back there. Ed Shankine, stand up. Where are you? I know you're a fourth generation. There he is right there.
Ed, stand up.
Yeah. There he is. Yeah. Any fifth generation Coloradans? Sarah Van Rensburg and a couple of folks in the back. So that's 4, 5, 6. Wow, thank you all for having us into your state. By the way, the gate's still open. We have a lot of folks coming. We have a special guest here tonight. This morning. It feels like night with these lights. Chris Romer, would you stand up, please? Thank you for being here with us. Governor Romer's son, former State Senator Chris Romer. Colorado is a special place. We know that. The DNA is unique. We are part of the Blackstone Charitable Foundation out of New York, and Allie and I, where's Allie? But she's hiding. There she is over there. Allie and I hosted them at our board meeting last week, and they've tried this Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network in North Carolina and Colorado, and it's only worked really here. So they're looking at us because there's something unique. They said, we can't do what you've done in Colorado anywhere else because you've got a special formula. And that DNA is what CTLF, Blackstone, and Companies to Watch is really all about. It's about connecting and knowing one another. And as Sarah Van Rensburg loves to say, if I know you, I know how to serve you. And so that's what these communities are about service. And that's the critical component of our Colorado DNA, especially in the business community. It's not about beating each other and win-lose. It's about co-opetition, it's about collaboration, it's about rising tide for everyone, the greater good for all. That doesn't mean that you don't have to hit your quota, by the way, because you got to hit your quota. You got to make a profit. You got to grow your business. And with that, I grew a friendship for a long period of time through this organization, CTLF, Stuart. How long ago was that?
So we met about 23 years ago at a breakfast meeting with CTLF, and you made an impact on my life, especially one day when you came out to our office. And the attitude that you had of giving of yourself and how you just embodied that, and the way you felt about giving to other people made me realize how impactful it can be to help grow your business and grow your company. And it's impactful in the communities. Obviously here, everybody's a giver. There's two kinds of people in this world, givers and takers. The CTLF group, the CTLF family is a giving family, and it really makes a difference. And how people grow in it is what makes a difference. And it's what makes this town special, and we are a special part of this town. So you're the impactful part that started it. So the impact you had on my life was amazing, and I know that you've had a lot of impact on a lot of people's lives here. So we owe you a debt of gratitude.
Thank you for that. Well, it's that's kind. 23 years we've been friends. Last week we had lunch, and we found out something new last week.
Yeah, what was that?
You don't remember? Bruce Coburn.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, we did. We were both laughing on the floor because he was going to a concert, and I was like, dude, I love that guy. So
never stop being curious about your friends. There's always something new. So with that in mind, we have 3 organizations represented today: Colorado Thought Leaders Forum, Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network, and Colorado Companies to Watch. Would all the team members of those 3 organizations or leadership please stand up? There's a lot that goes on between the services and projects and events that we put on, and this group of people and leaders make it happen. And that group of people you just saw are connected in that way as well, and going deeper all the time. And it's because of someone's leadership that's been running this organization since 2011. Is that right, Sarah? Sarah Van Rensburg has become the shining star in our community. And I welcome her, Sarah, if you would come on up, as an incredible leader in Colorado that has been in the making 5 generations. How about that? That's pretty impressive. And so, Sarah, thank you for all you do, and thank you for allowing the comedy show to be up here this morning, because we just love this organization, and we're honored to be a part of it.
I just have one question. Who is Arnold, and who's the short guy in our twin family here?
You're Arnold.
Take it off, Sarah.
Thank you. Did anybody see this event in the Olympics? I admit I become a little bit obsessed because I learned to skate ski this year, and it's fantastic, and it doesn't actually work in practice like they do it, at least not for me. But this is Jesse Diggins and Keegan Randall, and it was pretty cool because the United States has never won a gold medal in this sport, cross-country skiing, in like 40 years. And Norway, Sweden, and Finland, I think it was, were dominating this sport for decades. And before the Olympics, they said, this has been a long time coming. For 20 years, we've known that we could do it. And this was a sprint relay. So the 2 team members, each person took turns sprinting around these loops 3 times each, 6 rounds. And the very, very end, this other woman, I think she was from Sweden, she had just won the sprint, the Olympic gold in the sprint. So she was feeling pretty comfortable. She was ahead. And then the American comes flying behind her and just crushes it. It was the coolest thing ever. I'm standing there like, she's gonna win, she's gonna win. And she pushes her foot forward at the very end and gets the gold medal and collapses on the ground. It was so fun. Her team member just flew on top of her and was hugging her like, we did it. And I put this here because that's a team that thought something was possible that nobody in the world thought they could do. No one thought the Americans could ever do it, but they didn't have any doubt. So there was a totally different level of performance possible for them, and they did it. And that's what this event is really all about, is learning how to unlock the things that nobody else thinks are possible for ourselves. And so I have the privilege of introducing our speakers this morning. So John King, he's got a really interesting background. He was a competitive ballroom dancer, moved to LA. He got his very first job on the Carol Burnett show as a dancer, studied philosophy, went on to teach leadership and culture at University of Southern California. He's a founding partner of so many organizations, I can't list them all, but a couple are 1 Million Acts of Innovation and the Cultural Architecture Institute. He's also a globally recognized speaker, co-wrote Tribal Leadership, which many of us know. He's an expert in leadership transformation, culture, and executive coaching. And I have to tell you, we were in our office yesterday with these two gentlemen, and they transformed the way we thought about our own organization in the matter of a lunch. So I'm really excited about his ability to make new things possible for us. John is also on the faculty of the Central Eurasian Leadership Academy in Istanbul, the Middle East Leadership Academy, the Southeast Asia Leadership Academy, and the Moscow International Leadership Academy. A globally renowned leadership expert, and he has a passion for people, and he is a great human being. I'm excited for you to meet him. Our other speaker is Jerry Dackerman, and Jerry studied business, human resources and organizational behavior, and finance. I studied just psychology, so I'm feeling like I might not have achieved as much as I could have. Jerry's been the CEO of 6 public and private companies. He founded 4 companies. He took another public on the NASDAQ exchange, and he's led 5 companies through turnarounds, joint ventures, alliances, investment banking, acquisitions, and mergers. Through his career, he's also designed and delivered leadership programs all over the world. One thing that I think is interesting is he's lived and worked in London, Paris, Florence, Italy, and he now lives here in Colorado with his wife and their adopted 5-year-old daughter. Together, these two gentlemen have helped companies like Honeywell, Credit Suisse, Shell Oil, BP, Samsung, Zappos, just to name a few, to be able to break through their performance in ways that they did not think are possible. And it is my distinct pleasure to bring up Jerry Dackerman.
Good morning. Thank you for coming here bright and early. I've had a long history with Blackstone Entrepreneurial Network. We were joined in the early days. I think it was about probably less than a year from its inception. By the way, how many were in the session? We did I think a half-day session or a full-day session about a year and a half ago with my partner Brian Tracy, the noted author. Anybody in this room attend that? No? You didn't miss much. No, I'm only kidding. It's fine. So, first of all, I want to just say that, well, first let me introduce my business partner, if I can find him with these lights, Dirk Dixon. Dirk is a former Hewlett-Packard executive for 18 years, and I'm lucky enough to have him as my business partner. And of course, John is my business partner also. He's already been introduced. And I have a gentleman here that is an alliance partner. His company is by the name of Chief Outsiders. And we are collaborating together to develop an emerging field called neuromarketing. We'll get into neuro leadership later, but there's a nexus here. So Clay, you want to stand up and introduce yourself? So and Clay works with us in our marketing and so forth globally. So if anybody has any questions about that, he'll be around during the breaks. So first of all, our book is, go talk about serendipity, new book that John and I and Dirk and our partner in London, Conti Ford, is called The Performance Edge, interestingly. So it's a perfect segue. So, first of all, I'm honored to be here. And how many people do we have? About 300 people? Multiply that, but what would you say the average leadership experience is in the room? 25, 30 years, average? I mean, that's almost 10,000 hours of leadership experience. So I am very, very aware of that, and I want to be very clear. We don't know everything there is to know about leadership. We're still learning. I've been working on my own leadership and the leadership of my teams in various organizations for, well, more years than I'd like to say, over 35 years. And what keeps me in the game here is that I'm always learning. And we'll talk about the brain a little bit and how the brain operates, but one of the things that the brain loves is a challenge. Our brains are wired to be challenged, to learn new things. And for those of us who have reached the midpoint or more in our lives, age-wise, the interesting findings recently in neuroscience, because we've all heard the you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and you're pretty much fully baked by the time you're 20 or 25 years old, turns out to be untrue. We actually can learn well into our 80s. And that has profound implications for society. Because I remember a client of mine, Lord John Brown, was the CEO of BP for many years, and I led a global project for him in the area of a culture transformation, performance management framework, leadership programs all over the world. And they forced him to retire by law in England, where I was living in London at the time, at 65. And it was out of the paradigm that, hey, if you hit 65, you're of little use. You can't learn. You can't think. And it's untrue. I'll give you another little factoid about the brain. How many in the room noticed with age, if you want to share this, that their memory is not what it used to be, particularly short-term memory? Yeah. Now, I don't have that problem. Yeah, well, here's the good news about that. And you can use this to those young whippersnappers who laugh at us, including our children, when we can't remember where we left the keys or what we ate for dinner last night. And that is the reason why we don't remember like we used to when we were 15 or 25 is because we have so much information stored in our brains that it takes a lot of time to go back through the files and recall. That's important. So no need to worry or apologize about, oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Say, I'm proud, I don't remember what I had for breakfast because I have so much information in my computer. Okay, good. So first of all, I have an overarching question for you, which we're going to get to later in groups at your tables. And that is, and don't answer it now, you're going to have a dialogue about that, and we'll deal with that. But it's of extreme importance if you're committed to elevating or accelerating the leadership of your teams. By the way, this is a big room, so I'm trying to look completely, so if I ignore people on either extremity, forgive me. So think about, over the next few minutes, are leaders born or are they made? Are leaders born or are they made? We have the answer, and we're going to unveil that for you today. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to make an assertion here. You know, assertion is something that's based on facts as opposed to an opinion, which is more based on feelings. Perhaps the news media should understand that a little bit better, but we won't go there. So there is a leadership crisis that, if not resolved, our future and the future of our children will soon be impacted. The World Economic Forum, in a study a few years ago, found that 86% of respondents believe the world faces a leadership crisis. Has anyone seen the documentary, just for example, of what happened with Volkswagen? It's a great documentary. I think it's on Netflix. Yeah. So, and go back to Enron, go back to even companies that are honest and don't do bad things. Even there's a leadership crisis. So why? Why all of a sudden is there an acknowledged leadership crisis throughout the world? And it's not just in North America or the US or in Colorado. So we're going to get into that in a little while. So we're saying that our current leadership model is antiquated. Our leadership practices are not meeting the dynamic changes of opportunities of organizational life. How many people here experience an accelerated pace of change in business? Raise your hand if you're experiencing that. Yeah, probably. I don't see anybody who hasn't raised their hand. So there's also the context of technological advances. For example, I still remember a day when we didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones. My first cell phone was in 1983. And I was a really cool guy. I was living in Los Angeles, and I used to pretend like, I was talking to somebody in the car. And the cell phone was $4,000, $1 a minute. It took someone 4 hours to install it. The manufacturer of my car, BMW, told me in a very stern German way, you will void your warranty if you put this cell phone in. The car will blow up. It didn't. So, never forget his name. The service manager was named Helmut. So here's the thing. Who we have been being as leaders is no longer relevant or effective or powerful for creating sustainable futures for our enterprise. So I'm not coming to you with problems. I'm going to come to you in a moment with some solutions. So today's organizations clearly demand what? Elevated levels of creativity, innovation, and problem solving, right? So technical approaches, and we've all been through this. I've been through a lot of restructurings and financial business turnarounds and mergers and all this. And the first thing we do is what? Structural changes, right? Well, the problem with structural changes is that you get to a point of diminishing returns. You can only restructure so many times. You can only consolidate or lay off people so many times. After a while, it becomes a zero-sum game. So we're saying that this requires a new model of leadership. Does anyone know or would like to share, where do you think the model of leadership came from? And how long ago? This is the current model. This is what we pretty much, most of us operate in. Anybody have an idea? Military, yeah. It actually originated about 125 years ago in a time when we were in a master-apprentice model, meaning I was the master, John was the apprentice, John would work for me, and I would tell him what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and John would do it repetitively for many, many years. And eventually I'd sail off to the sunset and John would become the master. Well, today it's different. What do we pay people for today? We don't pay them to do, right? We pay them to think. Can you put up the first slide there? There's a slide up here. So this is from a guy named Paul Churchland. Paul is a neuroscientist. He says that today's revolutionary advances in neuroscience will rival the discoveries of Copernicus, Galileo, and Darwin. Anybody know who those guys are? I've never heard of them. So we're going to be talking to a new model of leadership, and I'll give you some context on that. How it happened was, John Brown, the CEO of BP, asked me, when we started that project 11 years ago, I said, what burning questions do you have? He said, I have two questions. One is, why when I give people stretch goals, they never meet them? So what I do is I give them even a bigger stretch goal, and their performance actually becomes more lackluster. And my answer, of course, being a consultant, was, I don't know, but I'll find out. I said, do you have another tough question for me? He said, yeah. He said, how do you have performance conversations that actually elevate human performance? And I didn't really have an answer to that. So, being it was a global, large project and I was committed to it being successful, I started a search, worldwide search, and I ran across a guy named Dr. David Rock of the Neuro Leadership Institute. Has anyone read any of David's work? A few people, right? So I began working with David about 11 years ago. I was living in Italy at the time, and he was spending a lot of time in Italy. He was a big snowboarder. He's an Australian. And he developed a body of work that he coined neuro leadership. And when I used to share that concept with people, they would say, neuro what? Now it's become mainstream. Companies like Intel, Microsoft, BP, well, not so much BP, that was a little bit older project. Ensign Energy. Anybody from Ensign Energy here? A client? No. So they are all instituting a whole new model of leadership and performance. So there is no right or wrong answer here, and every answer to this question, I'm sure, will be a good one and a valuable one. Just yell out, who is a leader? You. Good. Who said that? Okay, would you come up here and... That wasn't a trick question. I hadn't planned on it. He's not a shill in the audience, by the way. But really, who is a leader? What would you say, who is a leader? Pardon? Sheryl Sandberg. Of Facebook? Wow, I have a quote from her coming up. Very good. Right. But who? Yeah. So what does a leader do? What's the main purpose? Because there's a distinction between leadership and management. Implement, draw out, vision. Sorry? Serving. Good. All good answers. So try this on as a way of accessing leadership. A leader is a master in bringing out the best performance in people. I'll say that again. A leader is a master in obtaining the best possible performance in people. Make sense? So how do you do that?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. Very good. What else? Clarity. Providing clarity. What else? Sorry, what about strengths? Okay, knowing strengths and weaknesses, but great. What else? Inspire. Great. What else? Ask questions. Yeah, very good.
Listen.
What? No, kidding. Listen. What else? Encourage. What else? Finding out what every individual team member needs. What else? Take risks. What else? Provide resources. Good. So we could go on probably for hours. In fact, sometimes when we do leadership courses, we will. We'll actually have whiteboards full of who is a leader. So when we define something, we define it not to be right or righteous about it or exclude anything. We just define things, and John's going to get this in the area of culture in a little while. We define things so that we have access to impacting or transforming them. So a leader is just for now, accept that a leader's primary role is to get the best performance from people. You don't have to, when you walk out of the room, you can decide it's something else. But for now, just try that on. And their role is to help improve other people's thinking. To help improve other people's thinking. When I heard that first time, it completely transformed the way I led my company, my teams. Because before that, I thought as the CEO, I was supposed to have all the answers. I did the thinking for people. I did a startup back in 2001, right after the internet bubble burst. We still got 40 million financed after the bubble burst. It was loosely called a .com. It was an internet infrastructure company called Avasta. And I was the only gray hair in the company then. It wasn't anybody, I think, who would hit their 30th birthday. And my nickname in the firm that I found out about behind in the hallways was AskJerry.com. I had all the answers. Whatever you needed, I had an answer for. Even if I didn't know an answer, I made one up, right? And I was very proud of that. Now I know that wasn't much of a compliment. Because what I did is I ripped people off by doing the thinking for them. I didn't get ownership on projects. Why? Why would they? It was my idea, not theirs. And neuroscience, particularly over the last 5 to 7 years, has found surprising things about the human brain, things that neuroscience didn't know about, that are almost counterintuitive, that defy how we lead, how we be as leaders. Changes the whole game. So recent findings in neuroscience allow us now the creation of a new approach in a cutting-edge model of leadership, which is rapidly gaining acceptance with some of the largest and most successful companies in the world. We're asserting that we must rethink everything we know about leadership, everything we know about changing culture, everything we know about elevating organizational performance. And we need to do this to meet current changes or opportunities, or our goose is cooked. So the way we've provided leadership in the past will simply not serve us in the future. And again, I want to make sure that I'm not invalidating the leadership model that we've had for 125 years. I'm sure 125 years ago, did they have cars 125 years ago? Whatever. A Model T was probably a great car. I mean, I'd love to own one, but I wouldn't exactly drive it back and forth to work on I-25 right now. Things move on. Okay, so any questions so far? Because we're going to have a question and answer session, I think, for 25 minutes at the end of John's session around culture and tribal leadership. Any questions arise so far? Is there anything you heard that you're not clear about or you'd like to have a little bit more depth in? Is this making sense? So let's talk about the brain. So when we're dealing with people, we're really dealing with their brains, right? So what's the primary job of the human brain? To think? Process? What else? Sorry? Reason? Sorry? Oh, keep us alive. Yes, that's a good one. Actually, our brains actually kill us off, but that's in a whole other conversation. It's that little inner voice that tells you, I know you should say that, but you better not because your boss may not like it. So try this on. The human brain's job is to find associations and links to what we already know. See, everything we know, think, our memories, our skills, are simply vast and constantly changing neuro pathways. So literally, and we know this because there's now advanced three-dimensional MRIs or brain scans where they can actually see neural pathways being created as we learn. So our brains are constantly transforming. We are constantly transforming. We're not fixed. So when you walk out of this room, your brain will be significantly transformed, significantly different. And what happens is, since its job is to find out associations and links to what we already know, what do you think happens when we hear something that we don't know? What do we do with it? Sorry? Yeah, ignore it, reject it, argue it. How many times have you been in a meeting and someone's had a great idea, or you've had a great idea, and you pitch it and somebody says, nah, no thanks, we're fine. It's because that's the way the brain works. If it cannot find sufficient links to what it already knows, it will reject it. These vast networks that we have enable people to think by comparing what they already know to their education and their life. And think about that as an impact to the millennial, and what's the newest generation now? The Generation X, is it called, Dirk? I think it's, what is it? Z, sorry. Can't keep track. Understand that millennials have completely different education and experience than non-millennials. And Zs will have completely different experience from them. I can remember my parents really having a problem, my generation. My generation were all, I don't know, wild and crazy and irresponsible and everything else. You know, we turned out okay. My generation has its faults. So part of dealing with challenges with millennials is resolved, at least in part, by using this neuro leadership model. Because we're actually dealing with them inside of their experiences and their knowledge. Remember, when we hear something new, it takes a fraction of a second to sort through all existing neural pathways and compare them. Our brains take in millions of bits of information per second, millions per second. And what we do is the brain works so it selects what it's looking for out of that million bits. It'll take the 2 or 3 or 4 bits and go, okay, that's what I'm looking for. How many of you have experience, for example, you go out and you buy a red car and you pull out of the dealer and all of a sudden all these red cars show up. Have you had that experience? Yeah. And you go, where do all these red cars come from? I've had that experience recently when we've had our granddaughter. She's now our daughter since she was 6 months old. And I never met any grandparents who adopted their children before. Never. I've been all over the world. I've never met anybody. Now they're just coming out of the woodwork. It seems like every other family I meet, it's their grandparents who've adopted their daughters. Because my brain is now focused on that. So your brain is brilliant in that area. Your mind actually tells your brain what to look for. Because there's a distinction between mind and brain that neuroscientists are starting to distinguish. We won't get into that today. So, here's some facts. How are we doing on time here, guys? We got about 35 minutes, right? Okay, so here's some facts about the human brain. I'll go very quickly. Brain makes, as I said, millions of new connections every second to existing neural pathways. Thinking, or what we call thinking, what we believe thinking is, involves mapping a new idea map and comparing it in a fraction of a second to all of our other existing maps. If there's enough links from the new map, or between the new map and the current maps, we create a new map and it becomes part of who we are. Our brains like to create order out of chaos. Our brains like everything to fit together because it helps us predict outcomes and keeps us safe. That is the difference, by the way, between human beings and virtually all primates as we know it. We have the ability to predict. The monkey doesn't necessarily look up at the coconut tree and say, I think that coconut's going to fall down in about a half hour, so I think I'll move out of the way. They just get hit in the head with the coconut. So we talked a little bit about before that our job as a leader is to help people improve the quality of their thinking. And that works because sudden aha moments or insights occur when various ideas become linked to form a new map. Now what happens is when we create a new map, tell me if you've had this experience, and you may, hopefully you will have it today. When you hear something new, what happens usually? What do you experience when you hear something that's really profound and new? Like, aha. Pardon? Excitement, yeah. It actually can be a physical feeling. And when people have aha moments, by the way, they will typically move their head up and look left, and it'll be silent, because when you have an aha moment, an insight, you actually cannot talk. You can't talk while you're having an insight. So a tip there is, when people aren't talking, be quiet, because they're having an insight. Respect them. I don't care if they sit there for 5 minutes. Let them think. Because the pull is what? To jump in. Because people have a hard time being with silence. I know I can't stand silence. I want to say something. So the point here is that all of this provides an opportunity to shift the traditional way of leading to one that reliably provides for creating the type of energy in others that is needed to become motivated. And it requires a fundamental shift as a leader from doing the thinking for others to helping them think. I'll say that again. This is extremely important. It requires a fundamental shift in our way of leading from doing the thinking for others, from being AskJerry.com, to helping people do the thinking. Now, there's also another benefit to that. What do you think, in the old model, or current model I'll call it, when we're doing the thinking for people, when we're being AskJerry.com, what do you think happens to our brain's ability to think and make decisions? Rigid? What else? Yeah, we're exhausted. How many people notice at the end of the day, you're just beat? You're just exhausted. Partly because you're doing all the thinking for people. Leadership becomes much less onerous, more joyous, more satisfying, and a heck of a lot easier when you stop doing the thinking for people. When you help them improve their thinking, let them do the heavy lifting. How many people, because I had this one for many years, I pay these people all this money and I have to do their jobs for them. How many people have that to some degree? Yeah, right. The hands didn't go up, but the laughter tells you all, right? It's because we've trained people that will do the thinking for them. Why would you bother? Why would the brain, because the brain basically wants to watch football and drink beer, and of course that may or may not be true for both sexes, but it's somewhat true for both sexes. We really don't want to do the heavy thinking, and if someone else is going to do the thinking, the heavy lifting, the hard work, someone else is going to take the risk, we'll let them. It's just the way people are. So, some additional brain facts. Although structurally our brains are very similar, no two brains are alike due to the way our brains process information differently. Now here's an amazing statistic. The brain consists of 100 billion, with a B, neurons. Each neuron has 100,000 dendrites. And these neurons and dendrites guide our thoughts, our actions, and our perceptions. So the possible ways that a brain can connect information are enormous. It actually, if you do the math, it actually exceeds the number of atoms in the universe. Mind-boggling. And so therefore, there's 300 trillion connections possible. So the current models of leadership have pitfalls because they assume that people think like we do. Have you had the experience, you can do it on a personal level too, with children? Do you ever notice you give your child, how many people have given their child some really great advice and they don't take it? Really? I've never had that problem with my children. Wow. Must be the altitude. No. Well, here's the thing. It's not that they don't trust you or love you. It's because what you say to them makes no sense in their 300 trillion possible connections in their brain. They are living in a completely different world. And it's not just children. It's anybody at any age. So if you tell me your problem and I spit out an answer that makes perfect sense for me, statistically, 9 times out of 10, it'll make no sense to you. Even if you trust me, even if it's a great idea. Think about that. That's why it's so important to help improve other people's thinking, to help them generate insights. Because who said excitement when they have an insight? Somebody back in the room said they experience excitement, right? Well, that's because when people have an insight, electrical energy and chemicals flow from the brain, like dopamine and like that. So people are compelled to act. Look at yourself. If you come up with a great idea, aren't you more likely compelled to act than if someone else comes up with the idea? So I'm going to segue into what we call executive reinvention and power. We had a good conversation yesterday with CTLF, with Sarah and her team, and we talked about power yesterday, right? And how would you, in the old model, or current model of leadership, how would you define power? Authority, top down. What else? Control, yeah. What else? Command and demand. Influence, position, maybe force. Okay? Try this. What if power was actually defined as the velocity in which your word becomes reality? The velocity in which your word becomes reality. So if you look at great leaders throughout the years, let's take some political leaders. Like most people would consider John F. Kennedy, for example, an extraordinary leader. Some may disagree, but most people, he's got the reputation of being an extraordinary leader. What's he known for? He's known for a lot of things. But what famous declaration did he make to the American public, if you were around then? Go to the moon. Yeah. That's the one that typically comes up, and there are others, of course. He's known for a lot of things. Most of it good stuff. So when John Kennedy said, "We will fly a man to the moon and return him safely," he didn't add women to that, but I'm sure they would nowadays. People believed that declaration. He created a possibility for people to live into via declarative speaking. And great leaders are known, and this will be a great takeaway for you and something you can actually bring on the court when you go back to your businesses and your organizations, is that great leaders speak declaratively slightly more, about 2% more, than leaders that aren't so great. The rest of the time we speak in a domain that's called descriptive language. Descriptive language is talking about what's already happened. Financial results, what worked, what didn't, like that. Declarative language actually generates, and about 96% of the time, as leaders, we're speaking in descriptive language. And there's nothing wrong with descriptive language. It's fine. It's necessary. But if we tweak it and just speak a little bit more declaratively, study after study shows it completely transforms people's ability to lead and do extraordinary things. So if you want to reinvent your company, how many people here, at least at some level, are looking at either now or in the near future reinventing their organization or their leadership teams? Raise your hand. Yeah, a lot of people, right? So where does that start? Where does reinvention start? Yeah, it starts with you. Starts with the leader. It requires a willingness to reinvent yourself first. And you do that by relinquishing What made you successful in the past? So for me, I had to give up my strategies for being successful as a leader, which were very, very ingrained, and it became who I was in the world and as a leader. And I had to do that when I took a company public on NASDAQ. Because running a public, how many people run public companies here or have? Running a public company is distinctly different than running your own business in many ways. So what worked as a serial entrepreneur and as a business owner didn't work very well running a NASDAQ-listed company. So I had to completely reinvent myself. That didn't mean I was a bad leader. It's just contextually I had to reinvent myself. So what most of us, myself, successful people have operated from the past, which has been defined in terms of making people act by position or by virtue of position, competency, knowledge, experience, sheer will, charisma, and influencing skills, is no longer sufficient if you want to reinvent your leadership teams, your own leadership, and your organizations. So we're going to get together in groups and spend about 4 or 5 minutes about, remember the question I asked before? To think about? It was, what are we having for lunch? No. The question was, are leaders born or are they made? So if you could get together in your groups at your tables and spend about 4 or 5 minutes talking about what you think and then tallying how many people think they're made and how many people think they're born, people are born leaders, and then we'll go around the room a bit. So go ahead, about 4 or 5 minutes. That's cheating. Hey, Dirk? Hey, Dirk? Come here a second.
always remember this joke. Somebody told me, it's like, you know, getting lucky for me is going into a room and remembering why you went there.
Amen. You want a little coaching on why you're here or not? You need crib sheets. You just need to write down why.
I got up is actually go to the bathroom, then I got distracted.
Well, don't worry about it. How do you think we're doing on time? They seem to be engaged. You want to give them a couple more minutes? So I didn't hear. Wait a few more minutes. All right, I want to take about 2 more minutes and wrap up. Ma'am? All right, another minute. Wrap up, please. Did you put that amaretto in there? No. Thank you very much for the coffee.
Different department for that.
Different department, right? I've got water, but thank you very much. Oh, do you have a swizzle stick, ma'am? Hold on. Stick. Alrighty, let's. I can see you're really engaged in this, and sorry to interrupt. But we got a lot of ground to cover. Okay. All right. Hear ye, hear ye. Okay. Wow. It seemed like you had a very rich and lively conversation. So what I would like to ask is that by table, if there's a consensus at your table, just say, we believe they're made. So if it's like, if it's 4 and 4, just say equal. If it's, we believe they're made, say made. If it's 5 to 3 or whatever, and conversely. So you want to just go around the tables very quickly? Want to start over there? Born or made? Born. Born or made? Both. So even. Split. Okay, born or made? Pardon? Okay. Born or made? Both. Both. Born or made? Made. Born or made? Made. Both. Both. Just yell out. Both. Got it. Okay, so it sounds like about a 50-50 split, right? That about right? 50-50, 60-40 split, born or made? Okay, we have the latest cutting-edge research to answer that question, and it is very important to know the answer because it creates the context for everything in terms of leadership development. So you will be the first people in the continental United States to know the answer, right answer. I think in Alaska and Hawaii they know. Okay, we'll give it to you. Dirk, you want to bring it up? I don't know what the answer is, so. The envelope, please. Thank you, Dirk. That's why Dirk's here. He had the answer to that question. Otherwise, we would have just left him home. So, what? Really? The answer is nobody knows. And, you know, a little humor, a little levity here, but seriously, there have been study after study after study over decades about that question by think tanks, by big consulting firms like McKinsey and Bain, by universities, and pretty much it's 50-50. 50% of the people believe that leaders are made, and 50% of the people believe they're born. So here's the key. If you're committed to your own and your leadership team's acceleration of their leadership skills and capabilities, you tell them that leaders are made. Can anyone share why that is our recommendation? Yeah. If you believe you're a born leader, why would you bother on becoming a better leader and studying leadership and going through leadership programs and trainings? Why bother? Conversely, if you believe that leaders are born and not made, if you don't think you're a good leader, you won't even try. It makes a significant difference in the success of leadership programs. The first time I executed this was at BP on a global program where we had hundreds and hundreds, and I think probably 500 or 600 senior people from all over the world, all different cultures. And it made, statistically, we tracked it, a huge difference when we told them leaders are made, not born. Because we don't know. We might as well choose the interpretation that's most powerful. Because a lot of life is just about that. We can interpret things one way or the other. We might as well interpret them in a way that empowers us. Okay? Any questions about that? Any insights? Any aha moments about that? Good. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to take a little left turn here because I think it's valuable. What do we have, about 10 minutes before you go on, John? I'm going to talk a little bit about annual performance reviews. How many of you have an annual performance review process? Yeah. How many of you find it valuable or extremely valuable, that it really makes a difference? Yeah. How many of you love either receiving or giving an annual performance review and forced ranking, even? Yeah. So, companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on an annual performance review process. And most chief human resource officers and CEOs that we work with or talk to are frustrated because it makes no difference. Just like John Brown, the CEO of BP, said, how do I elevate performance? We have performance review processes and conversations. I hate to do them myself. My people hate to do them. We all hate to get them. So we hate giving them and getting them. What do we do? The short answer is kill your annual performance review process. Kill it. And you'll be amongst companies that we are working with, and NLI, Neuro Leadership Institute, is working with. Companies such as The Gap, Microsoft, Intel, they all, to one degree or another, have killed their annual performance reviews, and particularly their forced rankings. Because here's the thing about performance reviews. We now know that the brain doesn't understand the difference between constructive criticism and criticism. It's just all criticism. So inherent in a performance review, even if you use what I call the performance review sandwich, tell them what they did that's good, tell them what they did that isn't good, and tell them what they did that was good again. You leave them on an up note, right? Make sense? It doesn't. Because people only hear the criticism. They don't hear the good stuff. And people are expert, we are expert at self-criticism, even self-flagellation. Studies show that human beings spend 600 to 2,000 hours a year self-criticizing, self-flagellating themselves. How productive are you when you're doing that? Studies also show that you lose virtually all productivity from people for 3 weeks before and 2 weeks after a performance review. They are that freaked out. So 5 weeks of productivity virtually completely lost. We had a client one time, I had this conversation with him about 4 years ago, and he went to his HR department. So we got to change this annual review process, and he did. And he called me up. He was the CEO of an energy company, and called me up and he said, "Hey, good news. We took your advice." I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "We've eliminated our annual performance reviews." I said, "Well, what did you replace it with?" Got to talk about performance. He said, "Oh, well, now we're doing them every 3 months." I went, "Bob, I think you lost the plot here." I said, "Remember about the 2 weeks, the 3 weeks before and the 2 weeks after?" And he goes, "I said, we just multiplied that by 4. He goes, "Oh," well, I won't say what he said. So, but the thing is, obviously, if you're going to kill your performance review process and your ratings, you've got to replace it with something, right? You can't just ignore performance. So there are many different, we won't have time to get into the different methodologies and operating practices and systems that various clients, some of them our clients and some of them clients of NLI and other firms. I won't get into specifics. But at an overarching level, you turn the company into a coaching model. You actually coach people. You become leader as coach. Now, it takes some work, because people are not naturally coaches. I was a CEO for a long time, and coaching didn't come naturally to me. I actually went and I did a 3-week course on how to become a coach. And I came back and I have worked over the years, and now I have an expertise in coaching and really a subset of that, which is we call brain-based coaching, which we offer courses in. So it used to be a very people kind of stunned by this conversation a few years ago. And now it's gaining such momentum that I think that the latest number, it was 6% of the Fortune 500 have killed their annual performance ratings. I think it's closer to about 11 or 12% now, and it's increasing. So it has been controversial, only because people didn't see a pathway forward. So what do you see about the performance review process for yourself? What do you see what might be possible for you and your enterprises? Nothing? Would you be willing to consider altering that, killing that? And by the way, we've got a lot of papers and things written by us and other people about performance reviews. So maybe if you have questions about that, we can include that in the blog or something like that, okay? Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left. So I think I've got a lot more I could talk about, but let me see what would be the... Oh, okay. So since we had a lot of people talk about their commitment to an organizational transformation, either now or soon, I'm going to go into what we call 6 steps for an organizational transformation. This is a model that we use extremely effectively. So, first thing is an organizational transformation starts with what? Yeah, a commitment to drastically altering the way you lead your team and organization. We have had clients, and they turn around, but sometimes we have CEOs saying, go fix all my people. I'm fine. No, you need to commit. That was me, by the way, when I did this about 25 years ago. But as soon as I saw that, I had to make the commitment to altering the way I led. It opened the whole thing up. So the following steps are required to lead an initiative like this. First of all, you engage people to see that reinvention will reliably impact what's possible to create a future state that's desirable for them so that they see value in taking this path. Second, distinguish what is holding people back from creating extraordinary results by breaking up habitual ways of thinking and being. Human beings are literally creatures of habit. Even the way we work. Studies show after about 5 or 6 months in a job, the job becomes habit. The way we speak, what we do, how we do it, how we are in meetings, it's all habit. And there's good reason for that. The brain has to take anything we do repetitively and take it out of the prefrontal cortex and put it in the subcortex, which is where habits reside. Have you ever noticed, just for an example, have you noticed if you take the same roads to your office every day, do you notice sometimes most of the time you'll get from point of your home to the office, you didn't require any thinking. It's like you almost can't remember. You just kind of like the car took you. Well, because it's become a habit. So you've got to break up those habitual ways of thinking and being. Second thing is you use recent findings in the neuroscience field to interrupt fear and resistance to change, which causes over 70% of major corporate initiatives to fail or meet expectations. Using this model, we've never had a major corporate initiatives for transformation fail. We could someday, but so far we got a 100% track record using this model. Next, you transform the way people speak and listen. You use disruptive language to change the status quo and to create a learning culture. In fact, there's a quote on learning culture here. Can you put that up? I think it's the next one. Well, it's not that, anyway, that's Peter Senge's quote. People don't resist change, they resist being changed. And by the way, there's that Sheryl Sandberg quote, which I think is great. Is that it? Maybe I didn't include it. So, the attributes required inside of that disruptive language that's required to transform the way people speak and listen includes vulnerability, authenticity, acknowledgement and appreciation, and full self-expression embedded in the fabric of the organization. Most organizations consist of hundreds, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of people withholding from each other, even lying. And I don't mean that in a critical or negative way. It's just who most people are in organizations, because they don't feel free to be fully self-expressed. There's a great video by Simon Sinek. Anyone familiar with Simon Sinek's work? Yeah. Have you seen that video about, oh no, it's not Simon Sinek, it's, what's the other guy, Dirk? Authenticity video. We'll put it on the blog. We're going to create a blog. But it's a video. He used to be a former baseball player. And he had an injury and got a long story, smart guy. And he did an extraordinary video. He wrote a book called Authenticity. And he does this book about how inauthentic he was. Robbins, I think it's Mike Robbins. And I'm going to wrap up here in 2 minutes. We're going to introduce John. Next thing is the fifth point is you recognize that implementing new or improved processes are only effective in improving what currently exists. They are insufficient to deal with future challenges or to invent a new future for your enterprise. And lastly, where do people go when they want to reinvent their organizations? Where do they look? Past, present, or future? Past, yeah, because that's what we know. So that's the only place we have to go. But when you look to the past, you put the past in the now, and you create the same future, maybe an improved version of the past. So for true breakthrough initiatives and performance and transformation, you've got to stand out in the future and design the company from the future and work back from there. It's a whole different process. And last but not least, allow your organization to jettison its past in service of getting to a clean sheet of paper so that corporate reinvention can take place. And Peter Senge addresses this in his book, Fifth Discipline of Systems Thinking, serving as the cornerstone in creating a learning organization, which is key to an agile and resilient organization. So we've got a lot more we could talk about, but I'm going to give up the stage to my partner, John. Where is John?
I'm back here.
Thank you very much. As I said, thank you. John, come on up.
No, I want to start from here.
Great. Do I still have to stand here, or can I sit
No,
down?
you get the hell out of here. Go on, get out of here. I love you, really mean it. Thank you. I'm starting here for a couple of reasons. One is that we're going to be moving the podium, and so I am the distraction. There's a couple of things I'm present to. One is how thrilled I am to be in Denver. I don't come to Denver very often. I live in Albuquerque, but I don't come to Denver very often. My father was a geologist, and his office was the Four Corners area. And so I was raised when I was a child in a Hopi village called Oribe, which is the capital of the Hopi Nation. And what I didn't know until a few years ago was how living in the community with the Hopi when I was a child colored my vision of what it is to work in community and to work with groups. So as it unfolded, sure enough, I became highly influenced, and that actually is the genesis of the title that I coined for the book called Tribal Leadership. Okay, so it's based on what I learned and kind of anthropologically from the Hopi. Why I'm happy to be here in Denver is Sarah mentioned I was a professional dancer. That was roughly 100 years and 100 pounds ago when Jesus was a tiny baby. And, but the place that I came to in my studies that set me on fire was here in Denver at 1318 Lincoln Street back in 57, 58, because I was a scholarship student for the ballet theater school here. And so I originally trained as a ballet dancer. I am eternally grateful to Bob and Jocelyn Fisher, who mortgaged their home to actually establish a ballet theater school here in Denver, one of the finest schools in the world, I might add. And when I came out of that, I was on fire. There was nothing I wanted to do but dance like that. So that's the kind of the short version of a wasted youth. I'm here to talk to you today about something, I have it up there, tribal leadership and the cultural hero. So we're going to talk about tribal leadership, for sure. But the cultural hero part is a new thing that I'm thinking about. And what I'm thinking about in terms of cultural hero, while I stand here and I'm here with you, has to do with that I'm standing in a company of cultural heroes. In other words, people who are committed to leadership, committed to running their organization. And as we go through the cultural map, we're going to be doing a cultural map and a structural map in a few minutes. We're going to look at the stages of cultures. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cultural hero begins to occur at stage 4. This is where leadership authentically begins to show up. So if you're kind of keep that in mind, that will be indeed, I'm talking to you. So I'm talking to the person that's sitting in your chair, and I want you to know that I regard you as a cultural hero, and this is a distinction that we're beginning to develop that'll be the basis of my next book, okay? So there are only 3 distinctions in leadership. I know there are millions of things that we could say about it, but it goes into 3 major buckets. And your 13-year-old smart-ass kid is a master of all of them, okay? Which means, since at one time you were a 13-year-old smart-ass, that you're a master of these strengths. And they're aha. Jerry has referenced aha a number of times, aha. Aha is like when you come upon something you didn't know. Oh, wow, aha, it's changed the game. Duh, which is basically you knew that, you forgot that, somebody said it again, they said it in slightly different words, but duh, as in when your 13-year-old smart-ass kid goes, duh, daddy, like that. And then there's wow. Wow is something completely new showed up, okay? So all there is aha, duh, and wow, unless they occur all in the same moment. If they occur all in the same moment, then the word is pronounced Shazam. Because everything changed, and that's where you come into transformation. So what we're looking for in this conversation, look for the ahas, the does, the wows, and generate that for yourself. And it's possible that you may have a Shazam before you walk out of here, and if you do, you're welcome, okay? Now, I'm really trying. For some reason, it's not moving to the next slide. Yeah, it is a duh. And after a while, it becomes a wow shit. So hang with me. Okay, a little bit of kind of basic fundamental Newtonian physics. Energy is never lost. Conservation of energy. Energy is never lost. And if there are engineers in the room, electrical engineers, any electrical engineers in the room? Yay, yay, smart people. What they did is they designed something around learning called coding theory. Okay, and coding theory says, working on this conservation of energy model, that in terms of learning, energy is never lost, it just morphs. It just assumes a different form. So the first form is anticipation. You see, big anticipation is putting a lot of energy into something. And putting that big energy into something when you are learning leads to surprise. It doesn't lead directly to the learning. It leads to the surprise. Big energy, a big anticipation, big surprise, big learning, and hopefully learning that unfolds over the following months even, like that. Now, here's the deal. Take a couple of, twins that are sitting here. You're sitting here with your twin. One of you walks in and has generated for themselves big anticipation. The payoff is going to be huge for you because you will get big surprises. You will actually literally create the big surprises, and then you will have the big learning. Your twin, however, walked in, has the t-shirt, has the cap, has the cup, knows it. So they walk in with small anticipation, small surprise, small learning. So in fact, learning is always in your lap. I'm just here kind of laying something out. The arc of leadership. This is probably going to sound a little bit surprising, but I want you to know something. I'm not here for you. I'm happy to be here. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm honored to be here. I am not here for you. I'm here on behalf of your grandparents and your parents, because that's what formed you. Those are the values, the dreams. Those are the character traits that actually is working inside of you in this moment. And I'm here on behalf of your grandparents and your parents, and as are you. And we are here for the legacy that we're creating for our children and grandchildren. So the arc of leadership for a leader is about 150 years. And it takes into account being informed by parents, grandparents, and I mean everybody of their generation and everything you learn from. And then through you, it is your duty, a sacred duty, for you to actually carry on or pass it down through your children and grandchildren, roughly 150 years, certainly 5 generations. If we understand that, we understand something profound that is distinct between leadership and management. Management works in basically quarterly arcs. You know, what are we doing this quarter? What are we going to do? What did we do last year, this quarter? What are we going to do next year, this quarter? The predictability of it. And it makes for a different kind of thinking than accessing your thinking as an overall arc of about 150 years and honoring that which your parents and your grandparents did and honoring that which you are passing on to your children and grandchildren. So I'm not here for you. And oh, by the way, neither are you. You're here for your children and grandchildren, and you're here on behalf of your parents and grandchildren. So we're in the same conversation. And that's the arc of leadership. Leadership is way distinct from management. It might be said that management is granted by authority. You see, if somebody said, who had the authority, said, John, you're the manager, I'd walk in, I'd say, hi, nice to meet you, it's good to be here, I'm your new manager. No question, no voting. So in management, no voting, granted by authority. Leadership, on the other hand, is granted by the permission of those being led. By the permission of those being led. If I walked in and I said, hi, nice to meet you, it's nice to be here, I'm your new leader, you would have some sort of sub-comment about that. Like, really? Really? Because I don't have your permission. And it's a tricky thing, because people will grant the permission and then withdraw it, and they will not send you the memo. If you've ever noticed that, okay? The other part of it is that it is vital that as a leader, you have the permission of those you lead, those you serve. It is vital that you have their permission, because you, at some point, are going to take them to a place where it's uncomfortable for them to go. That's how growth occurs. So this is a leadership conversation, not a management conversation. Okay, now, I say that because I taught for 13 years in the Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California, very fine school. It's derivative Harvard, as they all are. And there's a point of view in B schools. And the point of view is that there is business, and then subset of business is leadership. Exactly backwards. Exactly backwards. So the context of everything you do is the context of leadership. And then what you have created is inside of that. And we manage that. So you might look and say that management is a craft, okay? It's a known thing. We can study it, we can do what we do, which, by the way, is case studies and best practices. And we can do that, and we can figure out what to do next quarter. We might even be able to plan as far as a year or so ahead, okay? And it might be valid, okay? It's a craft. On the other hand, leadership is an art. Now, here's what we need to know about art. It's messy. Craft, neat, clean, defined. Art, messy. You are involved as an artist, or as I showed you earlier, a cultural hero. You are involved in the invention and the creation of a future. And we make mistakes. In the craft deal, in the management deal, mistakes, big problem. Bad. In the art deal, mistakes are actually a correctable result. So that's where we get this paradox of people saying, oh, make lots of mistakes, fail fast, fail forward, all of that sort of stuff, and then you are penalized for it. You're being penalized by a management mentality, okay? So management, no voting. Leadership, nothing but voting. Okay, I want to take a moment. I'm going to sneak my way through here. I want to acknowledge something before I really kind of jump into this. And beside acknowledging you, I want to acknowledge the professionalism with which this event has been produced. I produced Shirley MacLaine for a period of years, which, by the way, is a handful. But I produced many events in Las Vegas, in main showrooms and so on like that. And so when I came into the corporate world and came into the teaching, I was appalled at how shockingly amateurish it was. But if you'll take a look in this room, there's, first of all, the room's set up impeccably. Second of all, you'll notice everything works, the sound works and so on like that. But all of you have certainly been to meetings in hotel ballrooms, and they're just brutal. And part of the reason they're brutal is they're not lit. So you're in the dimness of it all. So all you got is they crank up that and you're good. These guys, gelled with, it looks like Foley's Pink to me, guys, but they actually have put lights here because if you're going to teach, this is a tip for you, if you're going to teach, if you're going to speak, if you're going to do comedy, you have to do it in bright light. Or otherwise, people don't get it. It has to be defined. So I want to thank Lee and Trey and the team that set the room up and everything, because it is a different world when you come to speak at a place with people who have a clue in how to set up the room. It's about the environment. It was interesting that my next slide is ecosystem. By the way, your clock is not working. Hello? But now that I've said that, right? No, what an asshole. Yeah, right. So somebody give me, when I get down to 10 before, give me time. Okay, so that I can get to wrap up, okay? The new model of leader that Jerry talked about quite a bit kind of nets out this way. There was a model in the, let's say, the 20th century and prior to that, that is called the broadcast model. If you think of television, I came out of television, you will know that basically how leadership is somebody stands up here with a whole bunch of you over there and they broadcast. Just like the TV, they don't care about feedback. But we're no longer in that broadcast model world. What we're in is we're in the internet world, and it means that there is communication that goes both ways. For the first time, you have to listen. For the first time, you have to pay attention. So what we're looking for is creating an ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, what we're doing is we're managing that it is, like you would as an ecologist, that it's actually something that's not polluted, so that people can do what they do, because the leader is someone who is actually about managing an ecosystem in which other leaders arise spontaneously. And the only way you can do that is by not tending to the people. I don't have to mess with you. I don't have to mess with you. I don't have to mess with you. What I need to do is I need to keep the ecosystem clean. Okay? So it's a way of thinking about it. Leadership is based on R&D, not research and development, but respect and dignity. So that is a two-way street, and that's what we're up to. It's all about the relationship. I know that there's a lot of shiny objects out there, and people from B schools keep coming up with new management models that are the flavor of the month. I think all of you have probably had to deal with that kind of thinking of the flavor of the month. Completely ineffective, generally speaking. Peter Drucker, one of the real monsters in the world of business management, said that strategy, actually he said, culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. And when I heard that, I was failing as a strategist. I'm a strategist. And I was failing as a strategist, not by the stats, but only about 30% of my initiatives were actually successful. About 70% failure. And I'm going, unless you're a baseball player, you know, batting 300 is not the answer. Okay? So I began to look around for a different way, and that's how I got onto this whole idea of tribal leadership and the strategy model that I have in the book and so on like that. But it's all about relationship. So it's in a high-tech world, your secret weapon is low-tech, and it's about your relationships. I've never met a kid, I like kids, and I've never met a kid at the age of 11 or under that didn't have a profound sense of destiny. I want to say that to you because you're sitting in this room fulfilling on something about your destiny. The leader's job is to light up that sense of destiny, kind of turn up the pilot light on that. The leader's job is to set you on fire and then pour gas on you. So it's all about the access to destiny. You know, when Billy Jones is snowboarding, he's 11 years old, and you watch this kid just being amazing or being terrible, but he's snowboarding. That is not Billy Jones on the hill on the snowboard. That is Shaun White in his head. Give him a basketball, and he's LeBron. You did it, and at a point you stopped. And what we want to do is we want to get that going again. We want to get those kind of hero models going for you because you are the hero models for others. So we're going to talk about this inside of an inquiry. Not a lot of value in question and answer. Not a lot of question, answer, direct value. But there is value in something called inquiry, and it works a little bit differently. Can I borrow you? Could you just stand up here, and I'm going to give you the mic. And not trick questions, but I want to just interact with you, okay? Okay. And just, it should be on, and you should be able, yeah, I think it's number 3. So I'm going to ask you a question, not a trick question, and I'm asking everybody. So my question is, what's 2 times 2?
4.
4. So right into the mic.
4.
Thank you.
There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, now you can hear it.
Got to eat it.
Now here's my question. Where did you get that answer?
I learned it in school.
You learned it in school. No. Where did you get that answer?
Out of my brain.
Out of your brain, yes. More specifically, it's lodged in memory.
Right.
And it's high enough up in memory that you can access it right away. This is what we call thinking. You see, if it is your computer processing, we call it it's thinking. It's not thinking. It's processing, and it's accessing memory. So we access our memory. And that's how we get by. You got that? That's the question and answer model. I say, what's 2 times 2? You say?
4.
And it's over right there. But I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in how he thinks. So I'm going to ask you another question. And this question is, what is the nature of two?
What is the nature of two?
Yeah, what is the nature of two? Kind of screws you up, doesn't it?
It does. Got to think about that one.
Yeah, you will have to think about that. So what is the nature of two? By the way, no wrong answer, because you're going to actually be processing and thinking. You get that? So what's the nature of two?
The nature of two, it's a number.
The nature of two is a number. Now, we're off and running on the beginning of a conversation. Give her the mic. Okay? I'm coming your way. Okay, so right into the mic. What is the nature of two?
Can I use the same answer?
Say that again.
Can I use the same answer? It's a number.
No, not the same answer. I want you to build on the answer,
Okay.
because that's what we're interested in. Is we're interested in people actually building on the people around them and using them. So what's the nature of two?
Two numbers put together, 1 and 1.
Huh?
Putting two numbers together, 1 and 1, it creates 2.
Okay, 1 and 1 creates 2. Okay, hand it to him. What's the nature of 2?
It's an even number?
Say again.
It's an even number?
It's an even number. Okay, so let's go beyond the kind of simple math. Hand it to him. All right, what's the nature of 2?
Statistics.
Statistics, I got that. Okay, really, what's the nature of 2? By the way, notice all of those are accurate. You got that? And none of them are the whole answer. Like what 2 plus 2 is 4. None of those are the whole answer, but they're kind of food for thought. They'll stimulate. What's the nature of 2?
Before 3?
2 is before 3. Okay, I got it. You guys are so gutless. Come on. What is the nature of 2? The nature, at the heart of. What is the nature of 2?
Even?
Even. Okay. Are you married?
No.
You're not married.
No.
So you don't know the nature of 2. What is the nature of 2?
Measurement.
And by the way, you said even. Clear. All right, I got it.
Measurement.
Measured. Okay, good.
A pair.
A pair. You'll notice now, so we had math, and now, boom, we've got a new direction that we can go in, pair. And we can take this conversation, to spectacular depths and reaches. And we will come up eventually with something called set theory. You get that? So we're looking for, as leaders, I don't want the answer. I want what's the nature of things. I want your thinking, okay? So what we do is we use inquiry. The way that you use inquiry, thank you very much. The way that you use inquiry is you actually have to download what they already know so that we can get to where the thinking starts. Otherwise, all I get is warmed over what you already know. Does that make sense? And you will notice, you ask a question in an inquiry form, and people are bankrupt almost immediately. You get that? Because it actually truly requires thinking. So we're going to be doing a bit of an inquiry here today. I want to start with the basic inquiry that leaders live inside of. And the leaders live inside of something that I call the 5 W's of leadership. The 5 W's of leadership are who, what, who, what. Let me hear you say that. Who, what, who, what. Oh, one more time, because it's got a rhythm to it. Who, what, who, what. Okay, let's see what they are. Who, what is the basis of your interaction, of your relationships, of your effectiveness in your leadership, okay? The first one, and this is, the first one is who are we? Now, when you're dealing with individuals, it'll be who am I? And you want people actually asking that question, who am I? Because that's the question you're asking anyway. So, who are we? Second one, what are we building? Aren't you asking yourself that every day? What are we building? Third, who are our partners? Who are our partners? Fourth one is, who do we touch? And then the most critical question of all, what difference does it make? This is what leadership is about, is living inside of the inquiry of the 5 who, what, who, whats. So I give that to you as a tool. Now, here's the inquiry for a leader. This is a Bantu saying. The Bantu are a tribe in Africa. They're huge. There are about 8 million people in the tribe. When they meet each other, they don't say, hi, good morning, how are you? They say, what is the nature of your dream? And they're actually interested in your response. What is the nature of your dream? They go and they sit down underneath a tree and they talk about it. And the conversation comes to closure when the person who asked the question goes, ah, I see your dream. And then they move on. Now, is that not the question that I'm asking you? What is the nature of your dream? I'd like you to have this in the background as we go through the tribal leadership cultural map and the structural map, because this is critical to placing you in a position of being the cultural hero that we talked about earlier. So what is the nature of your dream? Ultimately, this is a little word trick, but you have to kind of listen closely. Leadership is about effective relationships and relationship effectiveness. It is possible to have effective relationships and not have relationship effectiveness. You know who knows this? Women. You need to actually get married, sir. Women get this right away. Women get this right away, okay? Effective relationships, good thing. Relationship effectiveness, wow. That's your access to power. So we're going to get really good at this by taking it apart and then putting it back together. Okay, we're also going to have a conversation that distinguishes out a zero-sum game from a non-zero-sum game. A zero-sum game is a game in which there is a winner and a loser. It's clear-cut. I'm playing ping pong with you. You beat me by 2 points. You won by 2. I lost by 2. 0. Like that. This is the way we were educated in our educational system. We were educated to win in a zero-sum game. And then you grew up and you got good at it. And one of the sorry things that you discovered was that what you knew got you to there and was insufficient to get you to where you wanted to go. And that's because it was now important, and nobody distinguished it, but it was important for you to distinguish for yourself a non-zero-sum game. And if you're a leader, that's all you're doing, is non-zero-sum positive outcome games. The game in which we're all in this together, and we all sink or we all swim together. We all win or we all lose together. So grab a paddle and start paddling. So that's what leadership is about, based on relationship. So now we're going to talk. I stack my hierarchy in culture this way, from the bottom, undermining, then ineffective, then useful, then important, and then finally at the top, vital, which means life-giving. So I studied. It was 25,000 people that I really looked at because I had no idea what I was looking for. And then I grabbed 9.5 years of data and sliced it and diced it, and this is what it gave me. So this is what I'm sharing with you right now, something called the cultural map. Stage one is undermining. By that I mean criminal. By that I mean pathological. We don't run into them very much. It's only about 3% of the total population. But undermining people have a particular point of view. And if we netted out that particular point of view, it would be life sucks. So we know, and our access is in language, as Jerry was pointing to for us, that in the life sucks, and this is not your 16-year-old kid going, Mom, life sucks. This is no kidding, life sucks. This is criminal activity, life sucks, and we're going to do it my way here. These people have an experience of being alienated, This is why it's weird for humans, because we are ultra social. We are designed to be in relationship and into collaboration and correlation with one another. The second stage, the stage called ineffectiveness, is a stage that you and I visit probably every day, particularly if we're up to something. So ineffectiveness is something you want to learn how to recognize so that you can see how to pull yourself out of it technically rather than spinning your wheels. Ineffectiveness actually has its own language as well, okay? And the language for ineffectiveness is, my life sucks. It's not life sucks. I can actually see that life is beautiful, life works, life is great for you. But for me, my life sucks. And it's a function of my ineffectiveness, and my ineffectiveness is a function of I am separate from people. I'm not connected. When human beings are not connected to each other in relationship, they are ineffective. When you find yourself being ineffective, like you're spinning your wheels, you're spending your day doing your work, nothing is getting accomplished, take a look. You're not connected, and you're not open to the contribution of other people. So critical that you understand this particular stage, because this is the stage of the martyr. This is the stage of the victim. This is the stage of the people who are not getting it done and crying about it and generally are checked out, okay? On the other hand, surprise, surprise, this is our highest opportunity right at this level if we know how to do something with it. Stage 3 is the stage that you and I go to when we're not being ineffective. We're useful. We're useful. These are the people that we pay. These are the people we give prizes to. These are the Michael Jordans. These are the people that we point to, and we know that, there's, in the world of guys, there's that guy, and that guy, and that guy. That guy is at stage 3. That guy is joined at the hip to stage 2. That guy says, I'm great. And in the silence, they're saying, and you're not. And I have the stats to prove it. Now, you know you've done this. I've done this. But here is the toggle switch. Life goes between I'm great, you're not, and my life sucks. And my life sucks. Now I'm in a place where I'm great, you're not. And you are there in different places of your life. At home, you may be I'm great. At work, you may be life sucks, or it might be the other way around, okay? Now, the big differentiator, and this is where cultural hero starts, the big differentiator is at stage 4. By the way, that's what stage 3 is all about, personal domination. So stage 2 is trying to avoid the domination of the others. Stage 3 is interested in domination. Back in the day, 15 years ago, if you wanted to play golf, you did not want to play golf with Tiger Woods. He would beat your brains in, and then he would come over and he would go, I'm great, and you would do, my life sucks. That's indeed what happened, okay? And after you played golf with Tiger Woods, you'd go play ping pong with Tiger Woods, and he'd beat your brains in, and he'd be great, and your life would suck. Then you'd do video games, and he would kill you, and your life would suck, and he would be great, because he is a committed stage 3. This is what our culture designs, and this is what our culture produces. This is what we learn in school, okay? And this is how we learn. It's almost impossible to get away from that zero-sum sort of relationship. The non-zero sum begins here at stage 4. Stage 4 is called important. By the way, stage 2, about 20, a little over 20%. Stage 3, roughly 50%. So now we're talking roughly 75% of the entire population is at stage 1, 2, or 3. If you want to wonder about where a leader is, they're not there. Where they are is at stage 4, roughly 20%, maybe a little bit more, and this is called important. And they are in your organization. Unfortunately, they're not talking to each other, and we need to get them together. So at stage 4, the person says something remarkable. They are the human being that says, we're great. And what they're interested in is my group. And building the we're greatness. Because what I want to do is I want to look over here because we're great and they're not. And this is how we get organizational power. Okay? We're great. It's about stable partnerships. We are weak at forming partnerships. I was a ballroom dancer. Ballroom has a particular look. The look is the man leads, the woman follows. The man makes her look good, she looks wonderful. The interesting thing is the way the human body is constructed, you only have power if you're going forward. The way your elbows are hinged, your knees are hinged, your hips are hinged. And when you're going backwards, I'm sure you've tried walking backwards or running backwards, you find out you're basically falling. But in ballroom dancing, half the time you're going forward and half the time you're going backwards. So half the time the man is driving, applying the power, half the time the woman is driving, applying the power. And yet, we're inside of the protocol of he makes her look good and she looks wonderful. So the power shifts seamlessly from person to person. We don't know much about partnership. What we know about is junior partner, senior partner, not a partnership. And because of that, we're weak at partnership and we're weak at teaming or team building. Harvard says, by the way, one of the greatest wastes of time and money is team building. I didn't say it. They said it, but they're right. Billions of dollars spent a year on team building. Why is it ineffective? Because people don't know how to partner. And if you can't do the pieces, you can't do the team thing. So, vital, life-giving, stage 5, historic stuff happening. Life is changing. Life is great. Life is great, and this is where team actually shows up. Now, I know the stage 3 thinks that they're a great team player. What they like is the team called star and supporting cast. So what we're looking for is this. Now, is this true that this is my time? Just yell it out. It is true that this is my time. Okay. I'm appalled. Okay. We learn 2 ways. We learn cognitively, which is comparison and contrast. And then we learn experientially. The way that we learn experientially is we do things experientially. So Stuart, if you'll come up, thank you for volunteering, by the way. Come on up. How about you? You come on up. And, okay, thank you. In the blue shirt, would you come on up? Thank you for volunteering. I appreciate that. Okay. And with the name tag and the black jacket. Right there? Yes, that'd be you. The one you're looking behind? Yeah, that'd be you. That's it. And Dirk, how about you come on up here? Okay, thank you for being here. Okay, now we've already done the cognitive part. The cognitive part is really easy. Now we're going to do the experiential part. The experiential part is you say your line, okay? This guy is stage 1. He is representing stage 1. This is an acting thing, okay? And you have a line, and your line is?
Life sucks.
No, way too happy. Way too happy. Give me?
Life really sucks.
No, even deeper. I want you to look inside.
We find it. It doesn't exist there, but...
Yeah, just come on. It's acting, Dirk.
Life sucks.
I like that. Okay, good. So life sucks. You are stage 2. Okay, so what you represent is the next level, which is?
My life sucks.
Pretty darn good. The thing about it is, it's a correction of him, because he said?
Life sucks.
And you said?
My life sucks.
Yeah, a little more like my life sucks, like a little more.
My life.
There you go. Yeah, you're good. Now, in the meantime, everybody's got this guy. This is stage 3, and he says, I'm great! You never have to coach that guy. And in fact, I would say don't coach that guy because he will beat your brains in, okay? Now, all these folks, is it Bill? Yeah, Bill, all these folks work for you. What I loved was his little eyes just went like that. So, Bill, you are kind of the corporate cheerleader here. And you say,
We're great.
yeah, and he says,
I'm great.
and you say,
You're great. I'm great. We're great. I'm great. We're great.
yeah. At the end of the day, Bill goes into his room, into his office. He closes the door. He puts his head against the wall, and he goes, my life sucks. Then he comes out, and he looks out at the cubes, and he goes, we're great. So Bill's got a problem, so he hired you. You are the consultant, okay? And you have a point of view.
Life is great.
Because that's what consultants say. We're going to pay you a lot of money. Your name is? Shina. So, Shina, we're going to pay you a lot of money because what we've got is we've got the all on hand, what do you call it? All hands-on meeting right here. And this is our opportunity. And your message is going to change the lives of some people. You got that? Because your message is?
Life is great.
Excellent. So you see this guy right here? See this guy? How do you miss him? But I mean, pay no attention to that guy, okay? None, because why?
Because I'm great.
Exactly. You got that? So I'm being you right now, okay? But you see this guy right here?
My life sucks.
This guy is amazing, okay? This guy has so much potential. This guy has so much going for him. He's so intelligent. He is so competent, but he's having a phase. He's been in that phase for about 12 and a half years. But your talk is going to change this guy. We are interested in him, okay? Now, the guy down here on the end,
Life sucks.
pay no attention to him. We just write him off, okay? So, Shina, you're going to give the speech, and your speech is going to be exactly?
Life is great.
Okay, good, and I'm paying you a ton of money because this guy's worth it to us. You got that? Okay, so if you will, put your hands together, and if you will, just welcome China, who is here with a message to change your life. So Shina meets you, and she says,
Life is great.
and then she says,
Life is really great.
and then she says,
Life is super great.
yes, and 10 minutes later you hear Shina say,
Life is fabulous.
no.
Oh, no?
No, it's not fabulous at all. No, if you ask them, it sucks, but you think,
Life is great.
that's it. Stick to the script, honey. Okay, so 10 minutes later, she says,
Life is great.
23 minutes into her speech, you hear Shina say,
Life is great.
42 minutes into the speech, what does she say again?
Life is great.
Indeed, she does. Notice the nuance she brings to it. This woman is a pro. Okay, now we're rounding the corner. We're kind of headed for home with her 1 hour, very expensive speech because she's the consultant. But it is now 52 minutes into the program, and she says,
Life is great.
and now we're definitely going for home. The third from the last thing that I want you to hear is,
Life is great.
next to the last thing I want you to say is,
Life is great.
building on that,
Life is great.
and you give her a big hand, and she goes back. She asks Bill, how did it go? And Bill says,
We're great.
exactly. She says, send me my check. You get that? Now, Bill was keyed in on transforming somebody in this, motivational speech. And that was you right there. So I want you, Bill, to go ask him, how did that speech impact him?
How did that speech impact you?
Maybe my life doesn't suck?
No.
No?
Nah, not a prayer. What is the truth?
Give me the truth.
My life sucks.
Yes. Zero movement. This is why Harvard said what they did. Zero movement. Yikes. Yikes. Well, we got Stuart here. our last help. So ask Stuart, how did that go for him?
How did that go for you? I'm awesome. I'm great.
Yep. In fact, he's pissed. Now, Bill, why is he pissed?
Why are you pissed?
No, Bill. Why? No, this is the eternal question that has you up at 3 a.m, Bill. Why was Stuart pissed? Because he's great. Why was he pissed? Shina knows.
I just know that we're great.
Sometimes that's enough. The reason that he's pissed is because Shina got all the money and he should have made the speech. Do you know people like this? I want to tell you something. We are all recovering threes. Okay? We are all recovering threes. And the name of the game is to get us to 4. That's where cultural hero starts. That's where leadership starts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, y'all. Give them a big hand. So that's what it looks like if we do it in language. In language, we have a kind of an issue about that. And the issue is this. Do people lie? Do people lie? How often do people lie? Every day, all the time, every time. You got that? People lie. Do you know people who say, I'm a win-win person? And they are until push comes to shove. And then they're going to be a win person, but there's not going to be that. They actually default to the zero sum. Do you know people like that? Have you been that? You've been that. Okay, so people lie. The only way we can find out whether what you say and how you're behaving is to take a look at the structures that you put around you. So we're now going to take a look quickly at the structures that people design around themselves at the stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your knowing this and listening will tell you whether people are lying or whether you can move them and you can work with them, okay? Big tool. So this is about the correlation of language and structure. Structure never lies. The wall's the walls, the floor's the floor. We're in the place, it's like that. You get that? So structure never lies. Form dictates our function. So you can actually move people around structurally, not worrying too much about the language, and then put the language in at a higher level, okay? Because that's what we're interested in. Stage 1, this is what stage 1 looks like. Those are all the peeps right there. And a little compassion for the guy at stage 1, because there he is. Now, if you were there, life sucks. You have no support. It is completely antithetical to anything that any primate does, much less any human does. Okay? That's not us. This is 3% of the population. Stage 2. Stage 2 was the first day of middle school. Remember when you showed up the first day of middle school and everybody, all the big kids were there, they knew each other and everything. But where were you? You were in the middle of all of it, and you were not connected. And when you're not connected, you are ineffective and your life sucks. You get that? So what you do is you get connected as quickly as you can. The teacher does a lot of it for you. First day, anybody that was in the military? 0 week in the military. That's what 0 week looks like. Your life sucks. I was a drill instructor. I liked it. It's a way to dominate people. Stage 3. Stage 3 is a smart person. What they do is they put people around them that are useful to them. You do not have a particular personality. I do not have a particular relationship with you. You're my accountant. You're the production person. You're the operations person. You're my dentist. You're my people around you. What Alvin Toffler called Kleenex people. You blow your nose on them, throw it away. The people that check you out at the grocery store, the people that hand you your dry cleaning, your postman, all of those people. Stage 3 collects people like that, and what they do is they form a structure called a hub and spoke. This is the way that people are being taught to network, and it's wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Okay? But we can only think that way if that's the only structure we know. So, I'm great. Here's what office meeting on Monday morning looks like. People show up, all of these brilliant little individuals show up, and the first thing that happens is we have a meeting with them and we turn them into a bunch of mini-me's. Then here's the rest of the week. Every time you're around, they're this, and then when you walk away, they're that. And then they're this, and then they're that. And then they're this, and then they're that. And you end up having to work on these people rather than working on the environment. And when you get home, honey, I'm home. How did it go this week? They are so stupid. If they would just do what I said, everything would work. That's stage 3, and that's what we're stuck with. I'm great, you're not. Working against dominating something called my life sucks. So now we have a question. My question is, what's the minimum number of people in a relationship to have the relationship be stable and effective? Just call it out. 1 is not the answer, honey. I don't know what you're smoking here in Colorado, but 1 is not the answer. What did you say? Let's try it again. 2. Yeah, the overwhelming response to that question, because it's a trick question, the overwhelming response is 2. Where did you learn that? Where did you learn that it was 2? From home. Where else? You don't know. I'll tell you where you learned it. You learned it from the movies. You learned it from all those songs by Elvis Presley that say, I want you, I need you, I love you. You complete me. You learned it from poetry, you learned it from our popular music, and you learned it from the movies, books that you've read. And who's lined up on this? Psychologists, sociologists, cultural anthropologists. They're lined up on it, and it is a category error. I'm going to ask you the question another way. The question is, what is the minimum number of anchor points that has an object be stable? Perfect, you got it. Do you know that that's the minimum number of people or elements in a relationship that has it be stable? So let's take a look. This is you. This is someone you know well. You actually have a relationship with this person, and it's based on a value. This is the part where values come between people. I don't have to have the same values as you. I have to have values that resonate with your values. Okay, so I know you. I also know, or you also know this person, and this person's a neat person. You have this kind of a relationship with you. I'm just putting in integrity. I'm just putting in something. It could be anything, but it's a value. And I say to myself, in a grown-up world, wow, wouldn't it be good if B and C got together? Now, if you're a kid and you're putting together B and C run away together and you're screwed. Happened when you were 13, you never got over it. But grown-ups do this. They connect people. And the way they connect people is they realize, well, they could at least honor each other. And in the honoring, you connect them. Now, you'll notice that the connection is between them. So you, as the person who's generating this relationship, are working on the quality or the success of that relationship. And in a grown-up world, here's what B does, and here's what C does. We find out what actually floats people's boat. We find out what they're passionate about. We find out what they're excited about, and then we pour water on that. We grow that. This is called a stable relationship. This is the basic format for building a network. If you go to networking that early morning, drink bad coffee, run around, hand people your business card, Please do not ever do that again. Okay, here's what you do. You find out what's connecting or what's in common or what's of value between two other people, and you pour water on that. And if it's business, you're in the deal. I have a friend that was a client of mine at C.B. Richard Ellis. She's a legendary producer, and she was making about $1.5 million a year clear. She's had a very nice life for 19 years. I taught her this, just this. And she changed her business model. And when she changed her business model in the first year, she made $7 million clear. The second year, she made 12. The third year, she made 17. And when it crashed in 2008, she made 10.5. It's because she understood something called a triad. A triad is the basic fundamental building block of a network. Anybody know what a geodesic dome is? If you look at it, it's made up of triangles, and it is the lightest, strongest connection known to man, okay? So let's take a look at stage 4. Stage 4 is you're already halfway there because it looks like that. It looks like hub and spoke, except we start to connect people, and we get them into communication. And the minute you do that, you become bigger than you are. You become not the little green dot in the center where everybody is a spoke of you, but what you become is the group. This is what a leader is. This is where you start to ask the question, who are we? What are we building? Who are our partners? Who do we touch? What difference does it make? You get this one, and you've got something huge to build on. Nobody gets to play stage 5 unless they have flattened themselves, in other words, mastered themselves at stage 4. If you ever wonder why you're working hard and some people are not working hard, this is why, right here. Then every once in a while, God and nature and your community offer an opportunity for something historic to occur. And if you're at stage 4, you get invited in. Here's what stage 4 looks like. Stage 5. Stage 5 looks like this. A whole bunch of people who have figured it out and have got their little groups. And in having their little groups, they look over and they see, you guys are at stage 4, and what you bring is actually useful for us, so we're just going to draw you in and make you part of the network. That's what stage 5 looks like. 12 years ago in Peru, 30 miners were trapped 2 kilometers down, and they were dead meat. And little teams of 5 and 6 people came, didn't know each other, came from all over the world to collaborate to save the lives. That's called a noble cause, to save the lives of those 30 miners. They had no idea what to do, and in fact, some people took on taking care of the wives and the girlfriends and the children. Some people took care of getting the news out. Some people took care of getting food in there for the people, and they got down into there, and a little team, happened to be from NASA, but it could have been anywhere, invented a tool that did not exist, that dug down 2 kilometers and got 30 men out alive after 30 days. A modern miracle, stage 5. And then everybody went home and devolved back to that and told war stories and waited for their next opportunity. This is where you want to get. This is the place where the power is. This is the place where you're stabilized. This is the place where people got your back. And this is what's key. So, stage 5. So you have a choice. And if I were you, I'd choose 4, because that sets you up for remarkable results. The results, by the way, when we track it, stage 3, high producer, stage 4, effortlessly, same amount of work, 3 to 5 times the outcomes. You want to really kind of blow the lid off, get your team to stage 4. And that's me. Thank you very, very much. Oh, before I leave, I think you get it. I'm grateful to be here with you. I am totally moved by who you are. Thank you for coming. Thank you for getting up early. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being my partner in this. And I want to formally thank a woman that I had no idea, and met her yesterday, of what a giant of a human being she is, and that's Sarah. Sarah, I'd like to give you a copy of the book. Thank you, darling. So the last thing I want to say is something that a famous guy said a few years ago: go forth and multiply. Remember that scene that Jack Nicholson said almost made a clean getaway? Yes, please.
Thank you. So we're going to give you a chance to ask any questions. We have about 15 minutes or so. So I just want to throw it out. Who has a question for either John or Jerry? Go ahead. Accountability?
Okay. Accountability, it's really interesting because accountability is pretty much, this is my view, okay? And it's not, by the way, a popular view, but it's my view. What I find is that when people are lit up and they're turned on and they're returned to the perspective of their sense of destiny, their noble cause, they figure things out, and accountability and responsibility and integrity are not an issue in the realm of leadership if you've done the right job, because people bring themselves to it. Nobody's telling Shaun White to get out and go ski, to snowboard. Nobody's telling those Canadian skaters, the ones that quit, and then they came back and they did this breathtaking ice dance. That was partnership, by the way. So accountability is something that occurs in the realm of management and has to be managed. I do leadership. If I were doing management, I would be all over responsibility, accountability, all of that sort of integrity, all of those things, communicate, all of those things that are critical. But I'm telling you, when people are lit up and on fire, in my view, they handle their own accountability. All you got to do is get them headed the right direction and in concert with everybody they're working with. So that's my response.
Yeah, let me add one quick thing that I'm aligned with that totally. So people sometimes collapse accountability and responsibility. So how we look at it is accountability is you can count on that person to do the task, do the work. Responsibility is more you can declare yourself responsible without having accountability, which as John said, is more in the domain of leadership as opposed to management. So I know a guy who declared himself responsible for ending world hunger. Now, obviously, one person is not going to end world hunger, but by taking that on as a responsibility, he found other people to be accountable for that, and he set up a nonprofit. Of course, they haven't reached that goal yet, but he has found a way to feed something like 50 million people who would be starving right now. Does that put a nuance on it, a fine point on it?
Another question? Right here. Can you stand up so we can...
Speak up, yeah. Yeah, great.
So the question is, how do you balance being a leader and a manager?
You don't.
Or both?
There's nothing to balance. There are times when managers take on a leadership role, and there are times when leaders take on a management role. They're related but distinct. And if you look at the definition of leadership, I don't know if we can send this slide up we have of leadership, and I don't know, we don't probably have time, but we could do that on the blog. We'll actually give you 2 slides, one describes leadership and the other one describes management. But they're two separate domains.
Yeah, and they are. They're like day and night. They're like craft and art. And when you're in the management mode, by the way, what's available to you as a manager is a high journeyman grasp of it. There's no such thing as a master craftsman. There is, there's a master in business. No, they're probably at mastery in leadership. So it's the art form. You attain mastery in the art form. How do you do this? It's by actually looking and seeing, am I in a management mode or am I in a leadership mode? Where we get in trouble is when we have a collapse of that or we have a category error and I start leading when management is called for or managing when leadership is called for. Okay? That's very annoying, by the way.
That help? Yes.
John, you challenged us to get to stage 4.
Yes.
Is it possible for a team to get, and stage 5 happens periodically.
Yeah.
Can a team get to stage 5 and stay there?
No.
Question is, can a team get to stage 5 and stay there?
It's not my experience. I've been working with this distinction for roughly 23 years. Since I had the insight about it. But it is not my experience. I have never seen a team go to 5 and then fall back to 4. Do you remember when Peyton won the Super Bowl? Hello, Denver? You remember? That was a stage, you know, do you remember that the year before life sucked? Remember that? And then he went back and the team came together in a particular way. The partnership of the defense and the offense, the partnership of the receivers, the partnership of all the skill set with all of the down linemen, everything. The partnership rose to a level of stage 5. As soon as the game was over, everybody went, I'm great. And it went back to stage 3 or stage 4, okay? The Patriots, sorry, but they tend to stay more at stage 4, so it's an easier reach for them. But when anybody gets to Super Bowl champion, remember Seattle, when Seattle played and they lost in the last 11 seconds because of the interception? And they went from we're great to our life sucks in 11 seconds. Sports shows it vividly. If you like sports and you look at sports, you'll be able to see stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 all the time, right in front of you, okay? If you're interested in the arts, if you like opera, you like ballet, you like any of that, you will actually see where people are working together and where people are working against one another. It is a function, not of the physical skill, it's a function of the consciousness of the people who are participating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I hold stage 4, just real quick, I hold stage 4 as a launching pad to get to moments of brilliance at stage 5.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong in being stage 4. Stage 4 is the focus so that you can access stage 5 when you need to.
Yeah, the full-on distinction around stage 4 is stable, effective relationships.
Yeah. Great.
How would those two state them?
The question is, can you give a concrete example of a leader who uses declarative language versus descriptive?
Yeah, I can. Tony Hsieh at Zappos.
Yeah.
Dead on. And he's one of many, many, many. Notice that they're all kind of 35 and younger. But Tony Hsieh built his vision. He was a guy that had made $268 million selling some software, and he was 26 years old. What a tragedy, because he had nothing to do with his life. And so he started looking around for what's the challenge, and he was told, you cannot sell shoes on the internet. And he went, really? So he went to Nordstrom and he got the shoe guy, because Nordstrom's a shoe store, and he took his partner, Alfred Kim, who was his roommate in college, who was a finance guy, and he put together a little, in San Francisco, a little kind of mail order thing in a Victorian house, and it soon outgrew that, and so he began to look at what's a 24-hour thing, and he moved it to Vegas. like that. Zappos is one of the more remarkable companies on the planet. It has been studied more than 65 times as a case study by Harvard Business School. And so that's one place to look. But you can look at Netflix. You can look at Gore-Tex. You can look at Gore-Tex. You can look at, and you can look at some of the other companies that are around that are transforming themselves. And by the way, that's all whatever it is. But where I'd be looking is, how can we get my company to stage 4? That's the key.
John, can you specifically say, what is something Tony says, and then what would that same thing sound like as a descriptive
We're going to
language?
sell shoes on the internet.
Versus
it can't be done.
Thank you. Next
Or-
question.
Yeah. That answer it?
Over here.
Talked a little bit about the numbers of stage 4. You talked about the 3 being the triad and that being the base. Is there a cap on how big a team can be and still stay at level 4?
You know, for me, it's very interesting. Where's my engineer? And you're going to love me. There's something called choose notation, where you actually choose for a number. So, for example, if I choose for 3 and I'm doing one triangle, and I choose for 3, I get 1. If I add 1 more in, so I choose for 4, what I get is I get 4 triangles. I get 4 triads. If I choose for 5 people, I get 10. It begins to work that way as a geometric regression. If I choose for 6, and this is the interesting number, if I choose for 6, I get 20. 20 is interesting because 20 is where tribes start to form. So when you're looking, what I do is I usually have people, something divisible by 3, usually less than 9. You know, think of it. If you've got 9 on your board, you've probably got 3 too many. You know, but if you've got 3, you can create, and I've got 20 different triads in those 3. That's a lot of brain power. Does that answer you? Good.
Next question. Right here.
Sure.
The question is, how do companies move away from performance reviews but still measure productivity?
Yeah. So they still measure what they measure through KPIs, key performance indicators. So it's not so much the measurement that they're changing, it's the environment, the construct of performance reviews that is transforming to one more of a coaching culture. That answer it?
Yeah,
Very
that's really well said. I've never actually heard that response before, but that's really well said.
I just made it up, but
Yeah, well, leadership is all made up.
that's right.
There's nothing but made up, okay? That's why it's an art form. But in the beginning, I said something. It's about creating an ecosystem. Think of the ecosystem that gets created around performance reviews. It's one of fear. It's one of suppression. It's one of not enough, that sort of thing. What we want to do is, so here's the deal. All you got is time and space. That's all you got, time and space. If you're in the time mode, you're a manager, okay? And what you're doing is you're managing against a diminishing resource. So that gives survival and fear. It just does. On the other hand, if you're a leader, you've got space, and your job is to create space for people, if I can talk a little woo-woo right here. So you want to get, sometimes you're a time bandit, sometimes you're a space cadet. I pull for space cadet.
Our book, ebook, which you will have access to, we'll put it up on the blog or however we do it, and send it to you, a link, which will be up probably next week, will address this specific question. And it also, I'll include something about what the Neuro Leadership Institute is called the SCARF model, SCARF. It stands for safety, security, but rather than go into that now, it addresses that, that concern.
Another question?
Out here. Over here, in the dark.
Where?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, we can't.
Hey, we baby boomers, the constructs of our imagination driven by our families, the Great Depression, work hard, get ahead.
Yeah.
How do we build a bridge is there hope for communication with these pesky millennials who seem to have life balance where it almost seems as if they want to go home and engage rather than work? So I know I could be wrong on that, but is there not a disconnect nowadays between the baby boomers and the millennials in terms of their philosophy around work?
Yeah, and invalidating the millennials, which is what we tend to do in leadership, is not the answer. So here's the thing about millennials. And I'll put this in a very simple way. We've done a lot of research in this area, and this model addresses dealing with the millennial generation. But at a high level, a millennial essentially wants you to tell him or her where you want them to be. And they want to figure out how to get there. And the model that we use in leadership is one of the basic tenets is people today don't need to be managed. They need to be unleashed. So our experience with millennials, and we've had breakthroughs with millennial groups, is that once you stop managing them and unleashing them, and stop looking at the differences between our generation and theirs, you have a tremendous lift in performance and an accelerated ability and willingness to step into management positions, because right now studies show that lots of millennials don't want to be managers because they don't like the way they're managed.
So you're not the boss of me?
Well, that's what my daughter says all the time, but
Both of my daughters say the same thing.
I think that there's...
they don't want a boss. People today don't want a boss. They want a coach.
Or a partner.
They don't want somebody telling them what to do. That's inside the current model. I mean, who here likes a boss? You might like your boss, but who wants a boss? No one that I know. Maybe some people do, but...
One of the things that's kind of interesting in that particular area is a low-tech kind of approach to it called being in relationship with them. And being in relationship with them has something to do with being interested in what they're up to and what their values are, and finding out where you can get into a place where you are resonant to their values. If you do that, they've found a partner, and that's what they're looking for.
Last question right here.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
What's your question? No, it's good.
No, stand up. Stand up.
Wanna...
I will say this. You're interested, as you said, opportunities, which is a code word for freedom and expression. And if I can create an environment or an ecosystem for you, which apparently you're doing for the people you're working with, is creating an ecosystem for them in which they have an experience of effective expression and freedom, then I think you've got the job done.
Yeah, and I would challenge that you or anyone else really likes to be managed. I assert that people enjoy and find leadership valuable, not that they are against being managed when management is necessary. But I still stand by the basic tenet that's in this model is people don't need to be managed today. They need to be unleashed because people today are much smarter and much more well-educated. They have literally information at their fingertips with their handhelds. They don't want to be told what to do.
Would you join me in?
I do want to say one word. I really do thank you for, as a millennial, representing yourself, as we say, representing. I really do appreciate that because what it does is it fractures the stereotype. I am dead on against the stereotyping of any kind, and millennials is one of the great crimes in business, like that. Those are our future and our resource, and we need to learn how to
Would you join me in thanking Jerry and John?
Thank you. And thank you for your powerful listening and your openness and bringing what I call a beginner's mind to this conversation. And look for, and we'd love to hear your comments through the blog, what impact this conversation has had for you, for your family, and for your organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you would indulge me one moment as we close. First, I want to thank John for acknowledging the Hyatt and Sevco Audiovisual because
awesome.
they truly are superb. So very quickly, who, what? Who are we? We are a community of business leaders who are committed to elevating our own leadership and the leadership of the people around me. What are we building? A non-zero-sum game that believes in heart-level leadership. There's sheets there, humble, engaged, authentic, reciprocal, tribal. Who are our partners? A few moments ago, our partners stood up. If you wouldn't mind, just very, very quickly, if you are a member of our board of advisors, our founding board, or the leader of one of our programs, Strategic Connections, Wise Women, and our executive men's and women's groups, would you stand for a moment? These are the partners, thank you, who are shaping our organization. I appreciated Greg's graciousness when he introduced me earlier, but this is a tribe, and we are being led by a lot of people who are sharpening us every single day. Who do we touch? We touch business leaders who care about heart-level leadership. And finally, what difference does it make? There's talk that we might have Amazon, 50,000 people here. We are growing at leaps and bounds in the state of Colorado. Greg talked earlier about Colorado. We have something to preserve in this state, a culture that is powerful and valuable. And the more that we elevate our own leadership and we bring heart-level leadership to this community, the better we will be. So if you value that kind of perspective and mission and vision, we invite you to reach out to anyone who just stood up and find out how you can get more involved in our community. Thank you for coming.
Brilliant.